It's Pete from Cheap Homesteading, and today we're going to work on my LG front load washing machine. A few days back we started to hear this huge banging noise when it was running through the spin cycle. We looked over and there was smoke coming out of the washing machine. There was a lot of smoke, so I was kind of worried a little bit. So we came over, we shut it down, and I did a little bit of research, and it seems like this is a common thing with the LG front loaders. The bearings on the drum seem to go, and then it starts banging around, and then it starts smoking. I looked on Amazon and they had a repair kit, which is basically bearings and seals to fix the drum bearing on the front loader. So I ordered it up, it came in 2 days, so I was super happy about that. But I didn't want to pull it apart before I got the bearing kit, because my laundry room is small and I really didn't want this thing tore apart all of my laundry room for 2 or 3 days. I decided to wait, and hopefully when we have it tore apart we don't need extra parts, but if we don't, we'll be able to just finish the job quickly. So let's get at it. Okay, so it's an LG direct drive front loader, and the model is 111KWK S0Z525. That's quite a model. I don't know why they make models so long on these things. It says it has a 10-year motor warranty, which there's not much of a motor on these things. So the drum in here started banging around, so there's bearings right at the very back that we will replace. To get to the bearings at the back, you have to pretty much dismantle this whole thing. It is absolutely crazy. Then we're going to remove the bottom screws, and we're going to pull the top lid back, and then we should be able to remove it. At the far bottom corner, you open this up, and there is a little drain hose that when you remove it, it drains the water out of the bottom of the pump. There is a pump filter here, and we're gonna try to see if we can open this, see if there's a lot of water coming out. It seems like there's quite a bit. Wow, that should be cleaned out more often. That is awful. Remove the soap drawer, push this little tab right here. I try to fix almost everything I have, because you know, if you calculate everything you replace because it broke, and you calculate it by how many hours you have to work in your job, it really becomes obvious how much time and effort you're putting into your job to pay off these items that only last a very short period of time. So when we bought this, I was kind of worried about a front loader, because a lot of people were talking that front loaders just don't last very long. And you know what? They were right. This is only about 8 years old. It's pretty good for a front loader to go without having any problems. Some of these I've heard having problems after 3-4 years. So if you can fix the stuff yourself, you can save a lot of money. This panel is held on by 3 screws. But the top part of the panel kind of clips around the top of the frame, so it still doesn't remove when you have the screws out. So you kind of peel the top off, you kind of, and it just comes off. We're going to remove the plugs. You kind of push there and pull. You push on that tab and pull. You push hard on the tab here, and it all comes out. There's a little clip, so you kind of hold that. And this piece just comes out. So now we're going to remove the front of the washing machine, but there is a seal that seals the front of your washing machine to the drum, and we got to remove that. There is a spring-loaded wire that wraps around the seal to lock it in place. And you kind of work the wire out of the seal. Okay, and then you just set that aside. So now you're going to pull the seal off this lip. And kind of fish it in here. So down here there's a screw. You remove this, and this holds this cover in place. There's another screw down here that you remove. So now we're going to remove these 5 screws holding the front on. Okay, so it's really important before you remove the last screw that you're pushing in on the front because the weight of the door and everything, there's nothing else holding it after you remove this screw. Pull the cover out a little bit, not too far. There is a door switch you got to remove. Basically, you push down on this tab and unplug it. Now you lean it about this far on an angle, and then you lift it off and it'll pop out. And we're going to set this in a safe place. Okay, so you got to be careful, the door is heavy and you don't want to break it. Now we're going to remove the counterweights. There's the top one and the bottom one, and the screws are 10 mil. And it kind of slides out. And set them down. And it just slides out off the pins. So now we're going to remove the back cover. There's 4 screws that hold this on. Lift up gently and then pull it down. Okay. Gonna give this a pull out. Set that over there. Okay, so now, man, that is miserable. You can't get that off. That does not come easy. For sure. Oh, wow. That did not come off easy at all. This plug was stuck in there so good, even if you pushed on the tabs, it wouldn't release. So there's a little tab that goes down each side of the plug, and I shoved up on this one, shoved up on that one, then wiggled it and it came out. But there was no way I was going to be able to squeeze that enough to actually release that. So now we're going to remove all the clamps that hold the wiring to the drum. Looks like there's a ground wire. We'll put the screw back in there for now. There's a clamp here. We're going to remove this clamp. Throw that back in so I don't lose it. I would recommend putting the screws back in the holes so you know where to put them back in, because I'm sure there's a bunch of screws with different lengths. There's a big hose here and another big hose here. You just loosen the clamps off and just pop them off. Clamp off. And then you just pull it and it's out of the way. We're going to take the whole soap box. I'm going to just hang it off the back. So we got to remove these shock absorbers, and these little pins pull out this way, but there's a little locking tab here, so you squish that and you work it till the pin pops out like that. See the little locking tab? You have to push that down when you just start to pull it out. So now we are going to move that out of the way. And there's 2 more on the other side. Move it out of the road. I loosened off the clamp, and then now we pull the bottom hose off. Okay, so I have to disconnect this tie strap. Okay, so then you disconnect the wires. And a 10 mil socket here. We're gonna put this back on. There's a little plastic piece you pop out, and it gives it room for the spring to unhook. And then you unhook it off the drum and put it there. Same thing to this side. Pop that out. And you hang that there. There's a little line you remove there. Okay, so now we're going to try to fish this out of here. You just got to fish the drum out of here. I took it out to the garage. It just makes it a lot easier. I set it on 2 chairs. So now we're going to remove the whole ring of bolts all the way around the drum. And they are 10 mil. We got all the bolts out. We just lift the 2 halves apart. So what you want to do is make sure there's no damage to the inside of the drum. It looks good, and that's what your heating element looks like. Just be careful when you set it down. So now we're going to lift the drum out. Lift up on it. It's not the bearing. So there is the end of my fixing tonight. I looked, and the bracket has cracks all over. You know what? I took a risk that it was just the bearings, but this is probably the main issue. This thing started to break loose, and that supports the main spindle in the center, so I'm sure it was just flopping back and forth. That'll be enough for tonight. I'm going to have to order up the part, and then we'll have to fix it another night. I ordered the part on Friday. It shows up on Sunday. It's absolutely incredible. Amazon is turning into your own personal parts department. Doesn't matter if you're working on a washing machine or a chainsaw or what it is. You can order it and it comes relatively quickly, which is very, very handy. We're going to clean up the drum, install a new bracket, and get the drum back to you. We're going to remove the bracket, get a putty knife, clean up where the bracket sits. We're going to sand underneath where the bracket sits, so here, here, and here. You don't want to have dirt under it and tighten it up. Number one, it could come loose after, or it could end up breaking the bracket. I don't know. But you just sand lightly on the spots where these sit. So here, here, and here. Okay, so we set the bracket down on here. I would recommend putting Loctite on the bolts that hold this in. I want to make sure that they're not coming loose. They tend to corrode anyway, so they're probably not going to come loose, but I don't want these bolts to come loose. So now we're going to tighten it up, but I'm going to lightly snug down one here, one here, one here, and then just keep going around until they're all tight. I don't want to just tighten one side down fully tight. Because you could possibly go crooked and maybe you could break it. I don't know. So it's just better to tighten it up evenly. So now we got the drum fixed. I'm going to change the bearings in the back of the drum where this shaft slides onto. So this is what causes the smoke. When you have the banging and the smoking, the back of the spindle housing wears into the seal, superheats it, and takes the rubber off. And that is what you smell, and that's what you see when the smoke is coming out. And see, the bearings still turn, so it wasn't the bearings, but it's the back of the spindle letting go and burning the seal. So there's two bearings in here. There's one on the bottom, one on the top, and a seal. We're gonna pound the very bottom bearing out, and then we're gonna flip it over and then pound this and the seal out. And then we're gonna install the new ones. Make sure you wear your safety glasses when you pound them out. You keep moving around. So the first thing I ordered was the bearing and seal kit. So it comes with a seal, an inner and outer bearing, a big rubber seal to seal the two pieces of the drum together. Okay, so what you want to do is you can use a block of wood, but if you go evenly and gently, gonna wipe this off. The seal, it looks like that. We're gonna put a bit of Vaseline on the edge of the seal, just give it a little bit of lubrication when it actually goes on. The drum, make sure you don't damage the seal. And that slides in there nicely. Kind of shove it one direction and it'll pop right off. Clean up this. Make sure there's no dirt or anything in the groove. We're gonna fish the new seal down in the hole all the way around. You kind of push and push it towards here, and then you get a little bit of a loop, and then once it goes down in, it actually fits. So you make sure the seal is fully pushed down into the groove, and then we can throw the top on, and the drum is almost fully installed. Gently make sure everything lines up. You kind of have to tilt it this direction. You wiggle, make sure it all sits down in place. Once you have them all snugged up, go around and give them a little more of a tightening. Remember, they go in plastic, so you don't want to tighten it too much because you'll strip the plastic. Take the spring from the hanger, hook it on, and lift up. You're gonna hook it on the drum, and you're gonna pull up on it, lift up on it, and hook it in there, and then reinstall the locking clip. Reinstall the locking clip on this side. You line up the shock. There. And you push it in. That one's installed. You install this one. Make sure it shoves in all the way. There's one more shock and it goes on here. And you get it lined up. And you make sure that the pin fully goes through. Okay, I think that one goes there. Okay, so this ground wire should go right here. That's tight. That's tight. This one. And this one. So now we're going to install the stator. I'm going to try to plug it in before I actually get it up in place. It's easier than trying to manipulate your hands when it's up. Then you tighten it up evenly. Make sure it's tight. So now we'll install the rotor. You're gonna wiggle it until it's in place. There was Loctite on this before, so I'm gonna put a little bit of Loctite. Hopefully I won't have to take this off again, so try to hold it. Okay, so the stator, the rotor, the wiring's all installed in the back. We'll go to the front and hook in the rest of the stuff. We're going to install the drain. Install this pipe way down in here. So now we install the top fill port. Okay, so I installed this, installed that pipe, and I put the soap tray in here. That plugs in, red, yellow, and there's a ground. Goes here. 10mm socket fits it. Make sure that gets plugged back in and pull the plastic back up. Make sure you zip tie it down. Then we tie the harness to the drum here. There we go. Take another quick look and make sure everything's installed so you don't end up having a leak after you have the rest of the washer back together. So I'm just checking all the lines. They seem good. There's no lines popped off. All the wiring is tied down. It should be good now. We're going to install the front cover. About this much of an angle. And hook up the door switch. Keys. We'll install the door seal. You pull it up around this lip. Okay, so I don't have the tool to expand the spring, so it makes it very difficult. But you kind of line up this end of the spring with the gap in the rubber over here. And then you push the wire as far this way as you can. You get this. You pull on the spring and try to fish. If you're doing this every day, you really need the tool. There we go. The seal is in. Install the front panel. You kind of push the top over the lip. Install the 2 screws that hold the soap drawer in place. Plug in the wires for the control panel. Okay, so there you go. So one last look, make sure everything's connected. Everything's looking good. We're gonna put the top on it and the back. So there you go, I got the job done. I'm gonna run it through a cycle, make sure I don't have any leaks, keep a good eye on it, but otherwise I think it's good. So that's about enough for today, and you guys have good.